So welcome to you all. This is today's I Love Real Estate student success story. We're going to be sharing some very interesting story, this one. And I've just spent a bit of time having a bit of a chat with Kelly, and we're going to introduce her, and she's going to get on and share what she has been doing. Welcome, Kelly. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's great. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really interesting and exciting, and I'm sure everyone here is going to get a lot out of this as well. So probably the best thing to do is let's start at the beginning, Kelly. When you and Liam first kind of like, actually before you started, you were in a bit of a situation, weren't you?
Yeah. So I guess going back to before we joined I Love Real Estate. So I, was pretty excited, went out at 20 and bought my first unit. I thought I was doing awesome, getting into the property game nice and early. Didn't know anything about property, just knew that I wanted to be in it. So yeah, went out and bought a unit. Liam did similar, went and bought a house. Thing is, we both bought in Mackay, which is a mining town. For me, it was my hometown, so I didn't really know much different. Anyway, time passes and the mining boom hits and crashes, and both of our properties lose over 100 grand in value. And in that process, I guess we lose you lose that money. It's only technically in paper because we haven't sold, but we've, the value's gone. We don't have equity in the properties. We're both working sort of 9 to 5 sort of jobs, trying to look at careers and building those sort of things. And we really didn't know where to go. We thought property was the answer, and right now it was feeling like definitely not the answer.
Are you being very polite there in the way you're describing how you feel?
Yeah, I think it would have been more like this to property. Won't swear, I think we're live. So, but yeah, so definitely our opinion of property at that time was not great. Couple of benefits, I guess. We had seen that you could have positive cash flow. Mackay, the mining towns are places where you could see it was a possibility once upon a time. So we did know it existed, but at this moment it didn't feel real.
Tough one, hey? Especially kind of like so young, and you're thinking you're getting out there doing the right thing, and you've been slammed. So you're 100K negative on an equity point of view, and you're negative cash flow by 24K. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we were actually negative 100 on 2 properties, so we're sort of negative 200. Yeah, so we had a little saviour there. Liam had done some work on his house, so it probably hadn't quite been hit as hard. It was still sitting at less than he bought it, but probably not quite the same impact because he'd already done work on it. Where the unit I had, I actually think it was probably close to 150 that it had gone at that point. But I just kept not thinking it was real because I hadn't sold. So, because I hadn't sold and hadn't refinanced at that point, we still had access to a little bit of money that was sort of sitting in it, although that money technically, it was a loan against a bank, against a property that wasn't worth what that loan was. So, yeah, that's where we were.
Not a nice place to be, hey? Far out. So you need to kind of like turn your situation around. So what did you do? I mean, like obviously you're in that situation, you're kind of throwing your hairs up the air. What do you do then? What was the next thing you did?
So we started looking into ways to get educated in property. We found I Love Real Estate. We went to, at the time, the Platinum Coaches did regional sort of one days, and we went to one and went with some friends of ours, and they convinced us not to sign up. I did that twice. Anyway, we then decided in ourselves it was the right thing for us. And so we actually booked flights, flew down to Brisbane to go to a one-dayer, so we could actually see Dymphna and who she was. And yeah, we signed up then and there.
So you flew down from Mackay to Brisbane just to see Dymphna so that you could sign up?
Yeah.
So you clearly, you were committed to changing wherever you're at, weren't you?
Yeah, like I guess we were looking at it from a point, we didn't know how else to change it. We looked at what we could do ourselves and we just didn't know what to do, didn't know where to start. So yeah, it was, I don't know, it was, to us, it was the only option.
Got it. So, okay, cool. And that was back in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Far out. Okay. So what were the things that you first did? Because you did a couple of things when you first got involved. You kind of, you change your living room a little bit and.
Yeah. So, so I guess we first just looked at like what we were doing. So I guess by first signing up, we, for us, it was an investment. It was an investment in our education. And we knew that we couldn't just sign up and do nothing. So we got rid of our couch. We set a desk up in front of our TV, desk and chairs. That was it. Also put a table tennis in the background just as something. So if we did need downtime, we had something, but making sure it wasn't TV that we're just sitting out in front of watching. And then I guess after work, when we'd finish work and, those sort of things, we'd get in every night and watch the 3-day boot camps. I think we watched all of the videos for the 3-day boot camps maybe twice before we actually could get to a boot camp. We did book in for the first one, but obviously being in Mackay, we needed to make sure we could afford to fly down, afford to get time off work, all of those things. So, but we were ready. We were doing this. So we watched all the boot camps at home, got through everything, and then finally got down to a boot camp.
You're kind of ahead of your time because it's kind of like you were homeschooling.
Yeah. I guess nowadays that seems like such a normal thing to do, but for us in that moment, I guess we'd looked at it and we knew that us going to, the conference and being there could probably have been quite overwhelming for us. So I guess we looked at it as a way of maybe trying to make more value out of that live session by knowing as much as we could already know before we got there.
And that kind of paid off for you too, didn't it? When you actually came down, how did you find that boot camp went? Like, I mean, obviously you sit there. I got to say, I love the attitude here of just, the comfy couch, getting rid of the comfy couch, putting a table there, putting a chair. It's like, no, we're going to school. We're going back to school.
We weren't comfy. We did not set it up comfy, but it was like, I guess with the very first time we tried to watch the boot camp, Liam wanted to lie on the couch and I looked at him and went, no, this isn't going to work. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, it's just the wrong, we're not looking at this correctly. We're like, we need to be focused. It needs to be what we're doing, not just part of what happens. And I guess for us at that point, like, I wouldn't say anything was wrong with our lives, but we were just cruising. It was just whatever happened. We weren't taking action. So the team getting rid of the couch was our first piece of action.
Fantastic. I know because Dymphna mentions that as well. She says, look, don't listen to these while you're driving a car or you're distracted. Focused and intent. You've done exactly that. Yeah, awesome. So, and how long did you do that before you actually went along to boot camp? Because obviously you signed up, you're ready to go. Then you get there, you focus, you get through the training on the evenings, doing your homeschooling, with Dymphna. How long did you spend on that? Because you went through the boot camps twice before you went to the boot camp.
think it was about 3 months. And I think when we actually signed up, I think the first boot camp was like the next weekend. And for us to go to the boot camp, we'd already flown down to Brisbane, taken a day off work. So for us to try and then do that the next weekend, at the time, we just couldn't make it happen that quickly. So I think it was about 3 months that we had. So as soon as those boot camp dates came up, we just booked it, flights were booked. So we knew that we had to get through it once before that. And I think when we got through it once, we were still like, well, what % of that do you think you took in? And we kind of went, let's do it again. So.
Great. Love the attitude. Love that learning attitude. And so, so what happened? You get along to boot camp, you fly down. How did it go?
It was, the weekend was awesome. We've been to a few since, and we'll keep going to them because like we just love them. But so I guess from someone like hadn't done stuff like that before. So just being there and being in that environment was really cool. But for us, I guess the big thing that really hit us was we just have to do it. We have to take action. So we set ourselves a goal then, that we would be in our first deal within the next 60 days.
Very cool. Sorry, I'm doing a calculation because I'm wondering why you've got such a motivation to get through things fast, and I realize that you're losing about $460 a week.
Yeah, so I guess before we signed up, I don't think we even realized what our negative cash flow was. It was kind of just happening. We just worked, and they were just bills that were just bills. And I can't remember if it was part of Peg in the Sand, but it was definitely part of that boot camp stuff when we did it at home. And I quite like numbers. So I just sat down and quickly worked it out. And I was like, we're currently sitting at negative 25,000 a year. We're not on big salaries. We're both in the start of our careers. So for us, that was like just a huge amount of money that was going out the door before we even woke up every morning.
Absolutely. Wow. Wake up call, hey?
Yeah.
All right. So how did you go? You've set a goal, 60 days, go to boot camp. You're all inspired. What happened? Did you achieve it? What did you do?
Well, I think after we got home, and I think there's a little bit of a come down almost off being at the boot camp. It might have been a bit of almost like a bit afraid of the goal that we'd set. But we kind of went past and went, okay, what are we looking for? We believe in, I think we actually had heard other success stories. We'd seen what people had done. Renovation was an area that we were probably a bit more comfortable with. Just for us, we wanted something that was lower risk, and to us, that felt like a lot lower risk than subdivisions or strata or those sort of things. And then the other thing, I guess, in that moment, we weren't comfortable looking at joint ventures. We wanted to look at something we could do ourselves. So that really cut down the options when it came to dollar value on what we could look at. So maybe it was a blessing that we were looking at our options as not being all these options. We were kind of cutting it down to what were our options. So we worked out exactly what we were looking for, and we went looking for it.
Cool. So what now? I think was Liam's the one. Was that the first one that you did when you started off?
Yeah. So I guess as part of our why we were looking for this first deal, we were sort of like, well, why don't we look at what we're also living in? So during that time, Liam decided to come and live in my place, which worked anyway because he was there all the time. So we looked at renting out the rooms in his house. He still kept himself a space because he wasn't quite sure he was ready for that commitment yet. But rented out all the rooms in his house. And Mackay was a funny market at the time. So you could get a decent sized house for $200, $250 a week. we were able to furnish rooms, include electricity and internet, and rent them for $150 a week. So for us, that was an option. You know, we were sitting in this such a negative situation. By us, you know, by $400 a week that we weren't previously getting is a huge difference straight away.
So you chunked into that. So that removed a big portion of the negative gearing, didn't it?
Yeah, like it definitely helped. So obviously we sorry, at the start I think we just did 2 rooms. So it's about $300, and we were still paying obviously like electricity and internet and those things. But for us, where we were, it was money that we weren't getting before.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Utilize your existing. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. So now that you've done that, tell us about that first deal.
Yeah. So we started looking for a cheap unit to renovate. We found a property that was on the market for offers over 110, I think it was, and it'd been passed in an auction, and it was a mortgagee in possession. So we ended up going and talking to the agent, and we ended up securing that property for $85,000.
Nice. What's that? 25 under, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And then what did you do? You did a reno, yeah?
Yeah, so we set a budget of $15,000 to do a renovation. This place, we never got it tested whether they cooked meth in it, but I think they did. So the whole place had to be gutted, like even sheets on walls. So I guess with that process, we then had to, you know, like we had to get in and get a lot done. So our budget did go over a bit. I guess we didn't quite get those numbers right. So we ended up spending 20 on the renovation. Good to hear.
So 20, and how did it come back? What was the end value?
Yeah, so I guess our costs then were sitting at 105, and we got it revalued at 140.
Awesome. And then cash flow?
So I guess the reason we picked this strategy, obviously was something we could afford to get into, but there was also, by furnishing it and keeping it done for that market, we were able to get it rented for $320 a week. So it was positive cash flow, about $6,000 a year.
Nice. Good. Well done. So you've done that. What's it like for you guys to come and do a deal, and it's like, you know what, you've pulled out some equity and you've got a positive cash flow flip around, especially when you'd started off and you'd kind of been throwing your hands up in the air. This stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
How did that change you?
Yeah, I guess when we finished this first deal, the thing that probably the big hit we got, like big understanding we got out of it, was we now had no money in the deal. So we were able to refinance it, pull out, I think it was about 35,000, which is like the deposit and what we'd spent on the renovation. So we now had a positive cash flow of 6,000. I know to so many people that sounds like nothing, but to us at the time, it was huge. So we've now got that positive cash flow. We've got no money in the deal, and we can now look at what we do next.
George was asking, did you borrow any money to buy the cheap unit? So you did. You put a deposit in and loaned, yeah?
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the money to pay it outright.
We didn't have the money to buy it. So we got a loan on it. In the market, you couldn't get loans that were more than 80%. So it was a 20% deposit. And so the 20% deposit and the cost for the renovation was pretty much what we had.
Wow. Okay. So it worked out for you.
Yeah.
What did you do then?
So after doing it once, we thought, you know what, let's just see if we can do it again. So we went looking for exactly the same sort of product. So we were looking for pretty much the worst unit, but still keeping it in town because we knew that's where it would rent better. So we found another one, and went to auction. Actually, with this one, we'd booked in a date with some friends. So my mum actually went to the auction for me. And I was just on the phone while we were out water skiing. And yeah, we were able to get this one for $80,000 for another 2-bedroom unit in Mackay.
So you bought a place while you were water skiing, and your mum was at the auction. You bought it for $80K while you're water skiing. Yeah. Were you still celebrating after the first deal? Were you?
I think so. I think, there was part of us probably that maybe still were unsure if you could buy at that or if you could do it again. So there was part of that. And then I guess the other part was us just being like, well, we've just got to get out and do it.
Excellent, excellent. So you've obviously got done first cookie cutter. And now how did that look? How did that turn out? Because you did a reno on that one as well. You did the same thing. How did that turn out dollars-wise?
Yeah, so we almost did the same thing. I guess because we went over our budget in the first renovation, that was somewhere we wanted to focus. So we wanted to try and do it for 10, where our last one's budget was 15 and we did it for 20. So instead of us replacing everything, which the first unit we didn't have an option, this one we went in and sort of painted the cupboards and painted the bathtubs and painted the walls, and anything that could be painted was painted. And so we got it done for the 10,000, and then refinanced this one and got it revalued at 160.
Ooh, 160, hey? With a 10 grand reno on a so 80K unit, 10 grand reno, and it comes back at 160.
Yeah.
Nice. And positive cash flow?
Yeah, so this one was positive 5,500, I think, at the start. Yeah. So rented for 300 a week.
Nice, nice. Good one. So your cookie cutter approach is working.
Yeah, and this one, I guess, for us, because of the numbers and because of how it worked out, it wasn't now just getting us the money we'd put in the deal, but it was actually getting us extra money. So we were now going, you know what, if we were to keep doing this or, going down this path, we could probably look at bigger things and look at, going into something else. But so it was really good, this one, when we finished it.
Yeah. Now, while you were doing this one, something else came up as well.
Yeah, so while we were renovating this property, so I should say when we were renovating the first property, there was a property in the same complex that unfortunately the lady that lived there passed away. She didn't have any children, and so her sisters were trying to deal with the estate and were really just not interested in it. So when we were renovating that first one, we actually went in and ended up speaking to the sister and just saying, hey, if you are wanting to sell, we'd be interested in the property. Unfortunately, our budget's only 92,000. And so, having that conversation, if you'd asked me to do that before joining ILRE Real Estate, I would have thought you were nuts, even that idea of having that conversation. So I thought that was really cool. Unfortunately, they didn't accept our offer at the time. So we just moved on and went and found this other one. So we'd done our second deal. But during that second deal, this property was going to auction. So it's being auctioned under deceased estate. And to be honest, I was probably a bit tired. I didn't even know if I wanted to go to the auction. The first renovation took us 3 months. The second renovation took us 3 months, and we were still working on that. So by this point, we had been sort of renovating for about 6 months and working our full-time jobs, and I was a bit tired. And we ended up deciding, like, no, we'd be crazy not to go to the auction. And we sort of went, okay, would we still want it at 92, maybe at 90? So we sort of, changed that a little bit. So anyway, we went to the auction and we ended up purchasing the property at 87,000.
$5,000 less, hey, at auction.
Yeah.
Oh, now there's something about the properties at that price point in your area, isn't there?
Yeah, so I guess like the reason we were able to get them at this price is that they nothing was selling. So you know, we were purchasing these properties with no competition because like the market had just crashed. The vacancy rates in town were sitting just under 10% vacancy rates. So the property market was not looking very good to anyone in the area. And I guess because we'd sort of worked out what we could do, that was why we sort of kept going down this path. I guess after purchasing the third one, so, you know, I guess with the third one, we went in with the same plan, you know, let's get it renovated, let's get it revalued. And the part that started getting really scary was as we were doing every property and, you know, we would go into when we'd meet with the valuers with, you know, the first page being like photos of what the property previously looked like, photos of what it looked like now, and the second page being like market comparisons. So we'd, you know, jump on Happy Data and grab what had sold in the area in that time frame. And when we got to the third property, I went to try and do these market comparisons, but nothing's selling. So even though I'm looking at these comparisons and going, how do I compare this to something that is currently selling in the market when, you know, out of the last 7 or 8 properties that had sold in the market that were 2-bedroom units, now 3 of them are our properties that we've purchased at these prices.
So the market data is from you, mainly.
Yes. And when you're trying to get a property revalued at the value of in the condition that it is now, but nothing else is selling in that condition, I'm no valuer, but like for me to try and find them, oh, you know, you could compare it to this. I was like, I've got no idea what they're going to be comparing to.
Yeah, got it. Wow. Okay. So look, now, Kelly, there's a couple of questions that have come in. And one of them is that now you guys did all the work yourselves, didn't you?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Was there anything else? I mean, like you're obviously, you're working, you've already got jobs. Have you got like trades experience? Has Liam got trades experience, or where are you? Is this all new to you, or?
So I at the time was managing motels. So that was sort of the area I worked in. Liam was working in the ports out at the mines, not at the mines, sorry, like at the coal port. But Liam does have a trade background. But when it came to things like plumbing and electrical, we always got trades in. But the carpenter handy stuff we sort of did ourselves with often maybe the help of a friend. Like I know when we laid the floors in the units, like I must say nowadays, not a fun job, but we had a friend come and do it with us. And I think when we did the first one, we were like, do we need to do this again? Anyway, we ended up doing it again for the third one. But yeah, so there were things like that. But yeah, all the plumbing and electrical we got, and like air cons, that sort of stuff, we got trades in to do those jobs.
Yeah. And how did it work out lending wise? Because you guys are both working. So obviously you've got a loan over each of these properties. You can't go more than 80% from an LVR. So you're pulling out the equity and then rolling it into the next deal. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So when it came to lending, when it's a property under, I think it's 150,000, there's a bunch of lenders that won't even touch it. They just don't even want to know about those numbers. So we did get a broker involved to try and help us find lending. I guess we were both young, we're both working full time, we have no children. So serviceability wise, we actually weren't in too bad a situation. And, you know, even when we got these revalued, the loans on the properties were sort of around 110.
Yeah. So quite manageable.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, some people might go and get a $500,000 loan. Well, we were doing that across three full properties, I guess.
Yeah, cool, awesome. And how did you? I mean, you're starting to become a bit of a market expert in your area, aren't you?
Yeah, so we were very comfortable with what we could do, what the market was doing in that area.
I got it. So how did you look at it from the vacancy rate of the area as well? Because there's a question here about the units. If it has high vacancies, how do you mitigate the risk?
Yeah, so what with the market being with the vacancy rates, so if we kept properties unfurnished, really struggled to get returns on them. It was still a mining, I guess it's a port town, but it still had a lot of people that would fly in and out for work, or particularly because I think the population in the town, and I don't know these numbers exactly, but I think the population went from about 110 to about 75, 80,000. So I guess when the population does that, it wasn't just miners that left. So the people we were renting our properties to were often like, doctors that got a 6 or 12-month assignment in the town, or lawyers or teachers. So they were professionals that were moving to Mackay for work, but may not want to relocate their whole life yet. So that was what the market needed. The market did not need an empty 2-bedroom unit. The market didn't need an empty anything.
This is good. So you knew what the market needed. You'd done your research. You knew what was needed in the area.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So I guess when we were looking at what we could do, I think when we went to the boot camp, someone else was doing furnished properties, and we kind of went, that would work in Mackay. So we went then and looked to see if it would work, and the numbers worked, and the market looked like it was there. And definitely there was still some risk in it, but from what we could see, that it was a lot lower risk going down that path.
Cool. So how did it turn out? Because that's the last. Was that the last? I'm getting mixed up with the deals. So you did that one was at 92. Sorry, and you got it for 87 at auction, and you did the 15K reno on it. How did that stack up?
So we got it. We did get it revalued at 140, and I would say it was a much better property than the second one. Layout was better, size was better. It had a lock-up garage, but I guess it was us. To me, it wasn't surprising that it came in lower, since the the market just didn't have sales to keep those sort of values coming back. So I guess at this point, we were sort of looking, like that was awesome. We got to redraw on the property, so we've got a bit more cash available to us now. We are getting pretty close to being, I think actually by this point we might have been neutrally geared. So we'd gone from being sort of negative 25 to now being in a position where we might have even actually been at like positive 6 or 7, I think, by this stage. So our position was so much better. But then I guess we still had my unit, which was still negative and still hurting us a little bit. So we then went and renovated it, furnished it, and got it set up the same as these properties. So that property I'd paid $275,000 for back in 2010, and it was now probably worth same price as these, so call it 140. The loan against it though was still sitting at about 190. So on that price, once we got tenants in at the furnished price, it was $1,000 positive at the end of the financial year.
Wow, that's
I was so excited about it. I know it's $1,000, but it was negative before, it was hurting us. So the $1,000 was a win for us.
Fantastic. So you had gone from, initially you were negative 24. And then with that one, with your existing unit now rented and positive, you ended up being positive 17. Is that right?
Yeah. So once we'd like got 3 tenants into Liam's house, done the 3 renovations, and then turned the unit, like changed the way my unit was running. Once we'd completed all of that, we'd moved down negative 25 to a positive 17.
Which is 42K turnaround?
Yeah.
And how long did that take you?
12 months.
12 months.
Yeah.
12 months to go from negative 25 to positive 17. Hey, and you put now what was the equity that you got out of all of those? Have you done a calculation on all of those? I probably need a calculator to calculate all that.
I did do it. I haven't written it down today, but it was about 250,000.
So you made 250K in a year.
Yeah.
And you went from negative 24 to positive 17.
Yeah.
And that was why you were chosen as one of the success stories. You and Liam were chosen as one of the success stories at the super conference.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was pretty exciting. And, you know, so many people, I guess, might, like, some people would look at 250 and not think that's as awesome as we think it is. But for us, like, it was actually life-changing, because we were in a situation where we couldn't see any other options than what we were doing and getting up and going to work and paying this off, and how are we ever going to get out of this, to now being in a situation where we had options.
Fantastic, fantastic. So the super conference that you were at, was it comes around in November at the end of each year. It's called the ILRE Real Estate Super Conference, and Dymphna puts the word out a couple of months earlier and says, hey, send in your success stories, and she collates them and then chooses some of them, and you were chosen. Was that the one in 2017, 1 year later from when you started?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we joined, I think, mid-year 2016. We didn't get to the first boot camp until the end of 2016, and then we presented at the super conference in 2017.
Wow, just over 12 months since you joined. Yeah. Fantastic. That's awesome. That's so cool. And look, I've got to say as well, it's like the numbers are different for everybody. You're going to have, if you're negative, then it's hurting no matter what the numbers are. And so, yeah, fantastic job. Fantastic. Now, I believe you had a conversation with Dymphna at that super conference that might have changed a little bit and might have influenced you a little bit then. What happened? Do you want to share that?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure she may have even said it on stage in front of everyone, but she pretty much said to us, I get what you're doing. I like you doing cookie cutter deals, but be careful about putting all your eggs in one basket, and you probably need to start looking other than Mackay. And at the time I was like, oh, can we do one more? And she was like, you could probably do one more, but that's about it. And I guess for Liam and I, that was a big, okay, we know that our risk level we're not high risk people. So we went, okay, let's really take this on board and let's start looking. So we started looking at the Brisbane market. We looked for quite a while, and it was really hard for us. We just didn't know, we didn't know Brisbane. We didn't, I'd jump from a suburb to another, and I was trying to really focus, but I found it really hard. So I ended up putting in for a transfer with work and got a transfer to Brisbane. So yeah, we just moved to Brisbane and thought, if we're going to do this in Brisbane, let's get down there and let's actually drive the streets and understand what we're looking at. Yes, so we moved to Brisbane, which was good.
Under the conversation that you had with Dymphna, it's an interesting point, because the one thing I think that was key about what you're doing is you did everything, you changed the situation in regional as well. Everything you'd done was in a very much a regional area. So yeah. Okay, cool. So how did you go? What happened in Brisbane? You've moved. You're keen to get into the Brisbane market. What did you find?
Yeah, so I guess we still didn't like we still wanted to look at the low end deals, which is a lot harder in the city. So we ended up going and looking in Ipswich, and ended up buying a house in Ipswich. The house was the worst house in not the best area, but we picked it up for 185,000 for a 3-bedroom house, but it needed a lot of work.
Now, hang on. What were they offering? Because if you picked it up for 185, because you're a negotiator, and it's been mentioned in the chat. I don't know if you've seen the chat, but everyone's that's good negotiation. So come on, what was the asking price for it?
The property was on the market for 250, offers over 210 or offers over 215. But again, we could see. So we signed up to RP data, so we could see on there how long it had been on the market. We drove past the house, and we could see why we thought people weren't buying the property. So we actually, when we put the offer in, we parked down the street and watched the house, and they were doing a good trade out of the house.
A good trade. Okay. All right. So
not
you
the business we wanted to get into.
Not the business that you wanted to get into, not the trade that's going to be kind of suitable in the place. Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. I understand. I hope everyone else is picking up what Kelly's putting down there. So you got it for 30K under.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Sarasa, I think I know what you mean. Sarasa was just saying. Yes, Sarasa, I think you know, and I think everyone else knows what you mean. Okay, cool. So you didn't want that kind of business. So now, so what did you do? What did you do to this place? Obviously, you got some pretty good experience in doing renovations. Did you do the same?
Yeah, we did. So when we first started, wanted to renovate it, we were planning to stay in the unit we were living in the city. Which a challenge which we knew was there, but we didn't actually really realize the impact, I guess, was the 45-minute drive from our house to the property we're trying to renovate compared to Mackay, where everything was like 2 minutes away, was actually a really big impact when you're trying to do work after hours, you know, because we're both still working full-time jobs. So when you're trying to do work on the weekends and after hours, it suddenly was actually really hard. So coincidentally, the landlord we actually were with ended up giving us notice to leave because his son wanted to move into the property. And we kind of went, okay, guess that's a sign. So we ended up moving into the property we were renovating. We sort of got in, and I think we did up 2 rooms, so like the lounge and our bedroom. So we had somewhere to sort of live while we were renovating. The house actually wasn't as bad. So we budgeted 25 for the renovation, and we'd seen in the past, I guess, the areas that cost a lot were kitchens and bathrooms, and we actually didn't even need to do either of them in this property. The kitchen and bathroom are actually already pretty good. They just needed tidying up, like toilets and vanities replaced, and we cut a section off the bench top because there was like big axe marks in it. But as a whole, those 2 areas weren't too bad. So it was really cosmetic, you know, floors, painting, lots and lots of painting.
And now this property kind of like, there's a few things that changed here too. So you did obviously the renovations and so forth. How did that turn out?
So we were planning to paint the roof paint the roof in the property when we purchased it. However, when we did start looking at that, it wasn't an option. Like we'd budgeted to replace a few sheets because we could see that there was some rust. But when the guys ended up there went to replace sheets, they were like, this is not a replacement job. So we ended up having to replace the roof on it. Now it's only a small house, but it's got a pretty good pitch. So that did blow out our budget. We probably could have got away with painting it if we were planning to sell the property. Not that I know if that's the right thing to do, but you probably could have got away with it. The roof might have lasted a few more years. But for us, we weren't planning to sell it. So for us to do that would have only been costing us something now that we have to do again in 5 or 7 years or something. So we ended up putting some extra money in the budget. So we ended up spending 30,000 and getting the roof replaced. Well, the sheets on the roof replaced.
Yeah, yeah. And how did that turn out on the reval?
So this property got revalued at 280,000.
Ooh, another one. Awesome. So that's another just 60, 65, yeah?
Yep.
Yep. And
85.
Oh, was it 85?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because you got it for 185 and then you spent 30 on it.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, 185 and 30 is 215. And then you revalued at 280.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 280. Yeah, sorry, you're right. 65.
It's only money. It's only money.
Only numbers.
So you don't need to know your numbers too well to do well. Yeah, is that what I'm saying? Now look, there's a couple other things that happened at this one as well, because you moved into it. What's it like? How do you juggle, obviously, living in and renovating at the same time?
So it's challenging. We added to that challenge. So we got the inside completed and we were outside painting the outside. And anyway, I felt pregnant while we were doing this renovation. And so I remember one day Liam walking around the corner. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm lying up against the fence, just like, I think I must have been 8 weeks pregnant or something. And I was like, "Don't talk to me right now. I can't deal." And so yeah, it was a bit of fun, but we still got it all painted ourselves. And it was a lot of work, but yeah, so that was exciting while we were in the process of this renovation.
Fantastic. I think you just froze there when you said exciting, but that's awesome. Awesome. So, and then that was obviously about maybe 2 years ago, just almost 2 years ago. Was that right? A couple of years ago? Because now you have you have a little boy, don't you?
Yeah. So our son Joey is 16 months old. So yeah, it's however long ago that is. So yeah, we were I guess the property was never purchased as a property that we were planning to live in, and we may have even, I think I was even like, I'm not living there, I don't want to live there. But when we moved into it to do the renovation, and then we were due to have our son, and I got a bit sick during our pregnancy, so he was actually expected to come a bit early. So we kind of were planning to move back into an apartment in the city, and went, you know what, let's just stop and like have the baby first and then move.
Frozen a little bit there. Kelly, I think you might have frozen a little bit there when you said he was expected early.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay.
You're back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so he was so towards the end of the pregnancy, we were planning actually to still move out of the house and move into an apartment in the city. But when we found out he was going to come a bit early, we kind of went, you know what, let's just slow down. Let's just, let's have our first baby, and, we'll deal with moving afterwards. Probably a huge blessing that we weren't aware of at the time. So Joey was born in February 2020. So right when COVID was happening, and that impact was happening. So for us, we were planning to move back into an apartment in the city, where he was, we've got a 600 square block. So for us, we kind of decided, well, you know what, let's not move yet. Let's stay in the house that we've got here, and keep a backyard while we're not sure what's happening, So so we're actually still in that house. Although we still plan for it to be an investment. So we'll see.
Cool. But now you've got good neighbours too. Haven't you connected with your neighbours there too?
Yeah. I guess one of the things that probably often happens in a neighbourhood, if you buy the house that everyone dislikes, and make it look beautiful again, the neighbors, like we've got the most amazing neighbors. Like when we were renovating, people were always coming past just complimenting on how good the house looked and how thankful they were that someone bought it. And so yeah, we're actually really happy being in the house.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. Hey, another extra win there.
Yeah.
Now, Kelly, there's a couple of questions here that I just wanted to kind of cover off on as well. One of them was that when you were doing your renovations for your units and you said you furnished them, was the renovation cost including the furniture? Like, is that a part of that renovation cost? Like, I think, one of the ones, you're spending,
yes,
and there was another thing as well, because you did that 10K reno when that changed, but just on the furnishings, how did that stack up?
Yeah, so we did include our furnished value in the reno cost, but we use Facebook Marketplace for everything other than the TV. So when we were furnishing them, we would buy like a $1,000 TV, like a good 60 inch TV, and put it up on the walls. But every piece of furniture we bought was secondhand off Marketplace or Gumtree or something like that. So I think depending which property it was and what we put in them, but maybe sort of $2,500, $3,000 for furniture.
Wow, awesome. And can you just elaborate a little bit about, because when you did the first one, I think you ended up doing the 20K reno, and then the next one you were like, no, we've got to get down to 10K. What happened? Because you because you were holding them, you approached it differently.
So when we did the second one and we went and painted everything, and before we did the third one, we sort of compared the two, and we could see that there was going to be, maybe not, but we could see room for issues that would come up with the second unit because of how we'd done the renovation. And I'll say very honestly now, that property has still got the first tenant in it. But when that tenant moves out, we will have to look at redoing the shower in that. I've actually repainted the shower floor in that property 3 times now, because having a tenant look after a bathtub that's been painted, they just end up using chemicals and things that aren't letting it last. So for us, if we were holding a property, I don't think we would paint those surfaces in the future, but it all depends on the property and the market that you're looking at and what the use of the property is.
Excellent. And now you did a bit of a calculation of how much time it took as well, didn't you, for your renos? Did you want to share a little bit about what you did? I think you've got some very accurate recordings there.
I do. So when we were doing the first renovation, and we knew that the numbers were going to be tight and it was a low end, sort of deal. So one of the things that we were, concerned about was whether we would actually make more money in our day job if we just went and worked overtime doing these sort of hours, or whether we'd make more money doing it through property. So every time we went to the property, every time we went to Bunnings, we would clock in and clock out what times we were doing. The first property we spent, I don't have the number written in front of me, but it was over 500 hours renovating that first property, where the second property, I think it was about 240.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so that's, how does that stack up from a work point of view?
Oh, smashed it.
Cool. Okay, cool. All right, good to hear.
Much more than our hourly rates.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Now another Jenny was asking, did you do all the asset protection with trusts and so forth when you're doing this?
Yes. However, I'll give my exact. So when we purchased the first unit, I used did a structure, all of that, everything exactly how we've been taught to do it. Did the same with the second one. I then started looking at the ongoing costs of it though. So when we purchased the third property, I actually purchased it in the same structure as the first one. Now, I know with ILRE real estate, like that's not how to do it, but for us, we're looking at 2 properties that are sort of worth 100 and, cost value to us is 100 grand each. So it's 200 grand in that trust. So for us, we were comfortable with them being, their risk being connected. Where, you know, if it was, and I guess we did the same. So the property we bought in Brisbane, our first house, is then in the same structure as that second unit. So we've got sort of 2 in structures. And then when we've gone and bought our next unit, it's in a new structure as well. So I wouldn't be putting more than that in a structure, but being the price point that they are, we were comfortable putting 2 in our structures.
Cool. So you did an assessment of your risks of that.
Yeah.
So and you're comfortable with the risk. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And the hours that you were mentioning, that was for both of you too, that 500 hours, that was for both of you with the 250. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Now, you did do another purchase of another place, but that's kind of sitting there waiting, isn't it?
Yeah. So only about 4 months ago, we purchased another unit looking to do a pretty similar sort of strategy down in Ipswich as well. We purchased for 155 for a 2-bedroom unit. However, when we actually settled on the property, we'd been given a copy of the lease that for the tenants that expired in February. So the lease had expired 2 months earlier. And then when I went to the tenants, they were like, no, here's our signed lease that runs till February 2022. So anyway, we didn't look at it like it's a bad thing. We kind of just went, okay, well, we're not meant to do that right now, and we'll look at that when that lease is due to expire.
Cool. And so now your life, how is your life different? Because you're in a far better position now, aren't you?
Yeah. So like financially, for us, it's chalk and cheese. Like it's completely different. But the big impact really is just that we now have choices. So you know, when I had Joey, I was like, I'm taking time off. So I chose to have 9 months off. I could have gone more, less, or whatever, but that was what I wanted. And so I did exactly what I wanted. When I went back to work, I only went back 3 days initially. And now both Liam and I work 4 days a week. So I have every Friday off with Joey, who's in the other room sleeping. And Liam has every Monday off with Joey. And neither of us ever planned to go back to work 5 days a week. Like 4 days is what works for both of us. So that's our one of our big wins, I guess, having that choice and flexibility that we can just work our 4 days and we're both happy doing that.
Awesome. That's awesome, Caroline. That's so cool to hear. And that's so you can actually spend time with Joey, obviously, and you still love what you do work-wise, don't you, as well?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, I guess when I moved to Brisbane, I did change into a little bit. So I actually now work in property management as my day job, like my teams manage apartment buildings and things like that. So yeah, I love what I do. I still get to kind of work in property a little bit now. Obviously it's management, not any of this stuff, but I really like what I do. So I'm more than happy to still work.
Fantastic. I think I'm done. Thank you so much for sharing. Was there anything else you mentioned that you might thought that would be good to add? Because it's kind of like you've spent a good hour, you've shared a lot of your story, and you've kind of gone from a real difficult scenario, come in, turn it all around.
Yeah, I guess for me, the big thing is really just about working out what your risk level is, finding a strategy that fits that, find someone who's either doing it, done it, you know, whatever it is, and then try and copy it, try and find that in that area you're looking for, but get in and give it a crack. Awesome.
And I love how you've done that cookie cutter approach. It's pretty popular, isn't it? Everyone's doing that cookie. I'm not going to try to say it anymore, but that approach.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, for us, we still didn't want to look at things that we considered too risky. So we've sort of been sticking with stuff that we're comfortable with, but it's working for us, and we're really happy with what we're doing.
Well, fantastic. Look, thank you so much. All the best to yourself and to Liam as well. It's a shame that he couldn't kind of join you, but he's obviously at work. But
Yeah.
we could do another one on Monday and chat with him. But no, really, it's so nice to hear. You've done really well, and thanks for giving us an update after you shared yourself, you know, and your story up on stage at the Super Conference. Really nice to hear, and I'm sure we'll probably, you know, you'll probably share some more things within the community as well. Hey.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
Awesome. And I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of real kind of positive comments coming as well. Thanks, Kerry. Loved hearing about your story. Thank you, Kelly, from Anna and Jenny. Thanks, Kelly and Michael. Well done, Kelly, as well. And thanks for sharing. Yeah, a lot of good ones. So much appreciated. Look, we will leave that there. Thank you so much for joining us during your Friday lunch break. It's now just on 1 o'clock. So we'll let you get back to the afternoon on Friday and also the weekend. I hope that's been pretty insightful for you. I just, the key points that I love about what Kelly and Liam have done is that they have treated the training as like a home study. They've stuck at it. They've got that attitude, and then they've come back with the results and applied. It's fantastic to see. So, thank you so much, Kelly. All the best, and we'll leave it off there. Hey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Ciao, ciao. See everyone later. See everyone on Facebook. Thanks for all the comments coming through. All righty. See you now.